All right, Shalom family, and welcome back to the Semitic Jew channel. In this video, I want to show you something from a historical study about West Africa and the ancient world, something that I think is very important to our research as Israelites, because a lot of the rhetoric surrounding ancient Israel, North Africa, South Africa, trans-Saharan, etc., is all false. I'm not going to say it's all false. I'll say it's sprinkled with some truth and mostly false. So you got to be really careful when you are listening to non-Israelites talk about history, because they're going to look at it from a non-biblical understanding, and they're going to very well, or most likely, I should say, interpret it from the lens of colonialism. Okay. So you got to be really careful when you listen and reading material by other people. But here is a source that's obviously not written in English, as you can see. It's written in German. So anytime you have, and I'll just give you a piece of advice, if you come across an ancient piece of work, a lot of you have technology now that will transcribe it for you, that will translate it for you, that you can translate it. So I'm going to leave this up there so you can have it translated. If you want me to have it translated for you, just DM me, and then I'll do that for you. But what I'm going to do is I want to show you that many people today are taught that Africa was isolated and underdeveloped before Europeans arrived. You you go to X, they're bashing black people. They'll say, "Oh, we'll go back to Africa." They'll show pictures of huts, and as if Africa's not fully developed, as if Africa's like this third world country, which is absolutely ridiculous. You have herdsmen in Africa, sure. You have people that want to live off the land, sure. There's no problem with that. That doesn't mean they're underdeveloped. It's ridiculous, but that's how these people always want to be on top. So we're always taught that Africa was isolated, underdeveloped, but the historical evidence tells a very, very different story, which is why you have to read. So here is, again, the source, and I'm going to look at page 14 if I can get to it. It's page 15. I don't know if I can get to the next page. It's not working for me. Let me see. Okay, that's fine. So, I mean, you got to have this thing translated anyway. So I'm just going to tell you what I found on it. So the author explained, and this is on page 114, he explained that archaeological evidence suggests that developments in West Africa were connected to the Phoenicians and North African cultural sphere. So we're talking about in every essence, from resources to culture, etc. West Africa and North Africa were intertwined. So the Phoenicians and North Africa was a part of West Africa in terms of its people, culture, language. They weren't disjointed from one another. Okay. Now, the Phoenicians, we know, were from Shem, and they dominated the Mediterranean through trade for centuries, which means the interaction between the Mediterranean world and Africa goes way back in history. They don't teach you that, do they? They don't teach you that even when we're talking about biblical history. They don't teach you that when we're talking about anthropological history, biological history. Because God forbid we have some connection to the Mediterranean, which we do. We know for a fact we do. But they don't want to put that on paper because, man, it would stir up a lot of stuff. And then, so that's on page 114 that I found. And then on page 116, the author has a map of trade routes. So I think I can show you that one, actually. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can zoom in. Let me see if I can zoom in here. As a matter of fact, I can. All right, so we see the trade routes here. as you can see. Just zoom in a little bit more. So notice those trade routes all into West Africa. Let me see what the key they're using. Okay, I didn't transcribe the key, but to tell what these things mean. But notice all these trade routes through North Africa, from North Africa to West Africa. Trade routes. So these are trans-Saharan trade routes connecting West Africa and North Africa and the Mediterranean world. Because we see these are also trade routes over here. And these regions here, I believe, are the locales in which the trading happened. So these routes moved things like gold, salt, and textiles all across sub-Sahara. Wow. So again, like I said, these people love to say there was an impermeable boundary between sub-Sahara and North Africa. Where? You cannot trust these people to tell you about history. You have to find out for yourself. Don't trust them. They're not trustworthy to give you accurate information. Because again, according to Jeremiah, they bend their tongue like the bow because there's no truth in them. There's no truth in them. They don't have a desire for truth. They only have a desire to be above and not below. And that's Esau for you. There's another, I do want to go to, that's page 115, by the way. And then we have, and again, look at all, I mean, just dark people, man. Beautiful, beautiful people. I sound like Trump when I said that. So, and then this is page 119. I mean, look at that, Niger. But again, we can go to Acts 13 on that one. But you can have this, again, you can transcribe this thing and ask it, and, ask what it says if you need to. All you have to do is take a screenshot of it and put it in Grok on X, and then it'll tell you what it is in another language. So this particular page explains that West African kingdoms had complex political systems. So contrary to what Europeans told our ancestors and told the entire world, I mean, we know for a fact, I know that what our people was practicing in terms of marriage, we were practicing servitude. There was no such thing as chattel, European American chattel slavery on the continent of Africa. They introduced that into the modern world and then abolished it. And then now they want to be pat on the back about it. But this talks about the complexity of the political systems. Kings ruled through both political authority and religious legitimacy. So what does it say about these communities in Africa? That they were societies. They had roads and stuff. They were sophisticated institutions. Civilization didn't come out of Europe, but they want you to believe that. They want you to believe that, oh, everything came out of Europe. All the culture and the sciences and all of this, and it's ridiculous. So so that's page 119. And then I also found and see, they'll show images like this. They'll say, see, look, where are the buildings in Africa? Ridiculous. This is on page 120. So what I found on page 120 was that in this section, it explains why these kingdoms became so powerful. West Africa controlled the gold supply that fed the economies of North Africa. Wow. And the Middle East. So this, and again, you can transcribe it literally. The West Africa controlled the gold supply that fed North Africa and the Middle East. Cities like Timbuktu and Gao became major centers of trade and learning. Wow. So you mean to tell me that people were learning in their institutions there? Absolutely. Wow. That's very interesting. So the idea that Africa was isolated or uncivilized before European contact is simply not supported by biblical history, nor is it supported by actual literal history, which is which is both biblical history and the history that we can track before colonialism. So, West Africa was part of this vast network connecting Africa and the Mediterranean and the Middle East. And we call it the Middle East today. I'm just using colonial rhetoric. So, understanding that history helps us better understand the real connections between the ancient world and Africa because they did exist. So, folks got to stop lying. Shalom.